Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so at first glance, the story of the crow and the snake sounds like, your standard children's bedtime story. But when we really look closely at the source text, a completely different narrative starts to emerge. What we're actually uncovering here is an ancient, absolutely brilliant masterclass in asymmetric warfare and strategic problem solving. It's a story that perfectly encapsulates how intelligence and just a bit of environmental manipulation can completely neutralize raw, deadly power. So today, we aren't just going to read a fable. We're going to deconstruct a tactical masterpiece together. Let's dive in.
Which brings us to the ultimate question, right? How exactly do you defeat an enemy that you literally cannot physically fight? I mean, it's the central dilemma of facing any unbeatable foe. Whether it's a massive corporate competitor, a seemingly insurmountable life obstacle, or, in the case of our source material, a literal venomous predator, brute force just isn't always on the table. In fact, relying on brute force when you're fundamentally outmatched is pretty much a guaranteed path to ruin. And this explainer serves as a brilliant case study in answering exactly that question.
So, let's just lay down exactly what we mean when we talk about strategy in this context. We're talking about the art of using brains over brawn to overcome a vastly superior opponent. It's fascinating. Often the oldest fables and folktales contain some of the most profound, deeply embedded lessons about survival. They teach us that the weak absolutely can defeat the strong, not by hitting the gym and getting bigger, but by using their environment, their observation skills, and, their cunning to completely tilt the scales.
All right, picture this. Let's set the scene. Our story begins in this beautiful, idyllic setting, a massive, sprawling banyan tree. A family of crows had built a beautiful nest up there, high in the branches, claiming it as their home. It was supposed to be this total sanctuary, but that peace is violently disrupted. Because, as it turns out, a wicked cobra was living in the hollow at the base of that exact same tree. Right away, you can see the geographic layout of this conflict. The innocent, vulnerable targets are living up in the canopy, while a deadly terrestrial threat occupies the base. It essentially creates this trapped vertical battlefield.
And if we trace how this actually unfolds over a few months, it's honestly devastating. This wasn't just a one-time unlucky encounter, it was a systemic, repeated cycle of destruction. On day 1, the crows are happy. They lay their eggs. Everything's great. But then, one evening during month 1, when they fly out for food, the cobra just slithers up the tree and consumes their little ones. And it gets worse. Fast forward to month 4, the lady crow lays eggs again. This time, they decide to stay close and watch the nest. But the literal second they leave it unattended, the cobra strikes again, eating the second set of eggs, while the grieving crows are forced to just watch in absolute despair.
And this right here perfectly highlights just how wildly mismatched this conflict is. Notice the stark physical contrast. On one side, you have these vulnerable, grieving crows. They're small birds. They have hollow bones and delicate feathers. And on the other side, a deadly, wicked cobra, a venomous predator completely covered in scales, packing a lethal bite. Think about it. If the crows fly down and try to peck the cobra, they die. If they try to wrestle the thing, it's game over. A direct, physical beak-to-fang attack is completely off the table. The power dynamic is just totally lopsided in favor of the snake.
Which brings us to the crucial pivot in the narrative. The lady crow, who is understandably terrified and heartbroken, tells her husband that it's just too dangerous and they have to abandon their home. But her husband flat out refuses to surrender his territory. Instead, and this is key, he makes a calculated promise. He says, "I will soon think of something and promise you that we won't lose our babies anymore." This is the exact moment the entire tone shifts. We are no longer looking at helpless victims. We are witnessing the birth of calculated, tactical planning. The crow shifts from this emotional state of pure despair into a highly cognitive state of strategic problem-solving.
So, the clever crow kicks off his plan with Phase 1, identifying a superior force. Notice he didn't look inward for strength, he looked outward, at his environment. He had observed that every single morning, the queen and her heavily armed royal servants bathed at a nearby lake, and it clicks. The crow realizes, hey, I can't kill a cobra, but a contingent of royal human guards, they absolutely can. He literally identifies the perfect third party. Now, he just needs to figure out how to weaponize them for his own purposes.
This is where the heist officially begins, and the tactical execution here is just step-by-step genius. Step 1. Patience. The crow waits at the lake for the exact moment when the guard's defenses are down. Step 2. The strike. He plunges down and snatches a highly valuable precious bracelet right in his beak. But Step 3 is where the absolute brilliance lies. He doesn't fly away as fast as he can to escape. The text specifically notes that he starts flying slowly. Actually, scratch that.
It's not just slowly, it's deliberately. He flies at a speed that purposefully allows the screaming royal servants to track him. He wants to be followed. The stolen bracelet? It's just the bait.
And that sets up Phase 2 perfectly, redirecting the threat. Once the crow has the full attention of this massive, aggressive force of royal guards, he leads them straight back to the banyan tree. The text tells us he flew swiftly at the end and dropped that precious bracelet directly into the hollow of the tree. Boom, the payload has been delivered. He successfully took a massive threat to his enemy, these frantic guards looking for the queen's jewelry, and painted a giant target right on the front door of the cobra's impenetrable bunker.
And just picture how this climax actually plays out. The crow's manipulation of the environment is totally complete. The royal guards come rushing in, armed with long, heavy sticks, and they start aggressively digging into the hollow to get that bracelet back. And what did they find? The cobra, fast asleep inside, completely unaware of the trap that had just been sprung on him. I mean, the crow didn't have to lift a single feather in combat. He simply introduced an overwhelming force into the cobra's living room. The guards, acting purely in their own interest, end up doing the dirty work of neutralizing the deadly snake. So, what's the big takeaway here? This crow's brilliant strategy ultimately rested on 3 core pillars. Number 1, acknowledge your physical limitations. The crow knew he couldn't fight the snake directly, and accepting that hard reality is what kept him alive. Number 2, use a third party to fight your battles. By understanding exactly what the royal guards valued, the bracelet, he enlisted a vastly superior army without them even realizing they were being used. And number 3, turn your enemy's safe hiding spot into a target. That hollow in the tree was the cobra's sanctuary, but the crow brilliantly transformed it into his tomb. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a lingering question to chew on. How can you apply this crow strategy to your own life challenges? Because let's be real, we all face cobras from time to time. Obstacles that just seem way too big, too toxic, or too well entrenched to defeat head-on. But as we've learned from this ancient text, brute force is rarely the only answer. So the next time you feel completely outmatched, just pause, look at your environment, ask yourself, where's the leverage here? How can I use brains over brawn to completely change the rules of the game? I really hope this strategy shift helps you tackle whatever impossible obstacle is currently in your way. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember, keep thinking strategically.